300 points. That's what I needed before July 2nd to qualify for the Pokémon World Championships in Yokohama, Japan. And with only 123 points on June 27th, I've got my work cut out for me. It's possible, but I only have one final chance. The hardest tournament of the year, the North American International Championships. To make it to Worlds, I would need to be in the top 16 of almost 800 players. Here's how we got here, how I prepared, and what happened. I started off this season about as well as I could expect to, making top 128 at 2 of the 3 regionals that I attended, and placing well enough to get a few points from the online global challenges, leaving me at around 95 points with 4 months left in the season. But because I was finishing law school, I could only attend a few local events and NAIC before time would be up. I needed to make every tournament count. I went to the local tournaments with my friends Tom Hayden and Chippa Cross, and managed to get second at one and third at another. Only your best 2 finishes count for locals, so that's all I could get. Now, all that's left to focus on is my one big event. NAIC was the only serious tournament I played in that was Regulation C, so I couldn't rely on the old tricks I'd picked them in Series 1 or Series 2, like a Spat or Sandy Shocks, and I didn't have too much experience with the Treasures of Ruin, the 4 new powerful legendary Pokemon that were legal for this format. So I tried everything. Chin-Pao Dragonite, Chi-Yu Fluttermane, Ting-Lu Arcanine, heck, I even spent some time with Wo-Chien, but nothing worked for me. I kept finding myself going back to a concept I had worked on in Series 2 with my friend Max. What if the Palafin Balance Core had a Trick Room mode? We'd be using an Eviolite Mischievous in the last slot of Palafin Balance as a Trick Room setter, with the theory that it completely walled Great Tusk and punished Great Tusk's fast teammates with Trick Room. And while this kind of worked in Series 2, I couldn't build a version that was both good against Chin-Pao offense and against Chi-Yu offense. And to make matters worse, the metagame was shifting to be more hostile to Palafin, with Amoonguss and Gyarados being on the most popular team. So even if I went with standard Palafin Balance as a comfort pick, I would be bringing a team that would have an uphill battle. NAIC has some of the best players in the world. I can't afford to be bringing a suboptimal team. Every inch matters. So I went on Pokemon Showdown and filtered for water types, trying to find something that could replace Palafin, and that's when I saw him, Azumarill. Water and Fairy typing resists fire, dark, fighting, and ice, the 4 types of attacks you expect Chin-Pao and Chi-Yu to use, and Azumarill hits both of them back for super effective stab damage. Oh yeah, now we're getting somewhere. It turns out I wasn't the only one interested in Azumarill. 2 top players, Gavin Michaels and Colin Hare, have been having consistent success with a team of Life Orb Azumarill, Focus Sash Pelipper, Citrus Berry Amoonguss, Assault Vest Iron Hands, Booster Energy Fluttermane, and Choice Scarf Goldengo. I'm not arrogant enough to assume whatever I could come up with would be better, so I tried that, and quickly realized this team was doing exactly what I was trying to do with Mischievous Balance. It could play a standard, balanced game of Pokemon, thanks to Amoonguss and Iron Hands, but thanks to its super unique Trick Room Fluttermane with maximum HP and maximum defense EVs, it could also twist the dimensions, set up Trick Room, and sweep with its slow, bulky attackers. I knew this was the team I wanted to bring to NAIC. Now, I just had to tune it. I prepared for this event with the usual suspects, Scarlet, Max, Aaron, but we had some new friends join us as well. Santino, one of the best players of the Sword and Shield era, and Elisa, who just so happened to be the person that built the team Colin and Gavin were using. We get to testing and run into our first problem matchup, Earthworm. The Earthworm teams were proving to be awkward, because if we played passively turn 1 instead of Trick Room, we would struggle to answer whatever Pokemon they put behind Shedtail, especially if it was something like Multi-Scale Dragonite. If we doubled into their Earthworm to try to KO it, and they protected, we would get punished by the Ting-Lu next to it. And if we took a half measure and attacked 1 to each, they would almost always still get off Shedtail, and there was no way we were one-shotting Ting-Lu. And all this isn't even considering if our opponent goes for a different lead than this Earthworm Ting-Lu. But Santino had an idea. Make our Iron Hands fast. No, like, really fast. And give it close combat over Drain Punch. This extra speed and offensive power let us get the jump on our opponents, and had the added benefit of letting us confidently go for Fake Out into other Iron Hands. Now, I know adding this speed seems a little counterintuitive, given how much I just talked about how important being able to use Trick Room is, but our Iron Hands is still slower than everything we want to Trick Room against anyway. It's not like we could outspeed Garchomp with Iron Hands even if we tried. With that same logic in mind, we also made a Azumarill a little faster, to outspeed all but the fastest Ting-Lu and Iron Hands. Hands. Sure, we sacrificed a little bit of survivability on both of these Pokemon to make these changes, but hey, if we knock out our opponents before they move, we're not taking any damage anyway. Here's the final team. Azumarill, with Life Orb, Huge Power, Terra Water, and a moveset of Aqua Jet, Liquidation, Play Rough, and Protect. Pelipper, with a Focus Sash and the Drizzle ability to set up rain. We made it Terra Flying so we could one-shot Amoonguss with Hurricane, and gave it a moveset of Hurricane, Hydro Pump, Wide Guard, and Protect. Iron Hands. We gave it an Assault Vest, made it Terra Grass, and it only has one ability. We gave it a moveset of Wild Charge, Close Combat, Volt Switch, and Fake Out. Golden Go with a Choice Scarf. Once again only has one ability, made it Terra Steel, and gave it a moveset of Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Trick, and Nasty Plot, so we can become a surprise setup sweeper after we trick our Choice Scarf away. Amoonguss with a Citrus Berry, with Regenerator to heal itself, and a Steel Terra type. We gave it a moveset of Spore, Clear Smog for Dondozo, Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff. Finally, my favorite piece of the team, Fluttermane. We gave Fluttermane a booster energy to hold, made a Terra Fairy, put 252 EVs in its defense and 220 into its HP, and 36 in its special attack, and gave it a moveset of Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Protect, and Trick Room. With the team locked in, I flew to Columbus, checked into my hotel, and got a good night's rest before the first day. Round 1, I played into a team of Lilligant, Torkoal, Shinpao, Great Tusk, Fluttermane, and Talonflame. I've played the Sun matchup plenty of times before, so I knew just what to do. Both games, my opponent and I fought for weather control by switching our Torkoal and Pelipper in and out, but I positioned it better both games and took the set. We're 1-0. My next match was against a player I've played in online tournaments in the past, so I knew it was going to be a tough match. He was playing a team of Arcanine, Amoonguss, Iron Hands, Tinglu, Fluttermane, and Iron Bundle. I underestimated how much damage his lead could deal and lost my Golden Go too quickly in Game 1. But, sitting in team preview between games 1 and 2, I realized something I should have noticed before. His Arcanine doesn't have Protect, and its Terra type doesn't resist water. I have a new plan. I focus on forcing my opponent's Arcanine in so that I can double it and take it out, allowing my Iron Hands to do its thing without being intimidated or burned. From there, my Iron Hands and Pelipper are able to take out his Iron Hands, leaving Golden Go to clean up his Iron Bundle and Fluttermane with Terra Steel, Make It Rain. The third game goes mostly the same, but I lose more resources because my opponent has figured out my plan. The game comes down to a Terra Steel, full HP Golden Go, a -1 special attack, versus my opponent's full HP Iron Bundle. My Golden Go just barely survives Hydro Pump and takes out the Iron Bundle. We're 2-0 now, but that was way too close for comfort. My third round opponent has a weird team. Alucha, Fluttermane, Dondozo, Indeedee, Armarouge, and Sandy Shocks? I have a terrible track record into Indeedee Armarouge, and because my opponent's team has both a fast mode and a slow mode, I can't be sure whether my Iron Hands in Azumarill are faster or slower than his Armarouge, which is a big deal. My opponent knows I have to play carefully to scout out information, so he plays super aggressively, removing important pieces of my team before I have enough information to react. I lose the set 2-0. I can only lose twice if I want to day 2, so now I need to get serious. My round 4 opponent is an aggressive Tailwind team, with Garchomp, Fluttermane, Shiyu, Iron Bundle, Murkrow, and Amoonguss. This is a matchup I've played plenty of times before, so I know exactly what to do. Game 1, I set up Trick Room early and sweep with Azumarill and Iron Hands. Game 2, I adjust. I know this time he'll try to bring Amoonguss to counter my Trick Room. So instead, I lead Golden Go and Azumarill, putting on huge pressure. My opponent tries to switch around to position better, but takes too much damage in the process, and I win the set. 3-1 now. In round 5, my opponent was playing a weird balance team, with Golden Go, Shiyu, Grimmsnarl, Gyarados, Amoonguss, and Tinglu. We have 3 great back-and-forth games, with some not going my way, and some my opponent's, but he manages to win the set 3-2. Now, I'll admit, at this point I'm getting pretty frustrated. I can't afford to lose a single other time today if I want to make it my goal. I take a deep breath, get something to eat, drink some water, and keep pushing forward. Round 6 was a pretty aggressive version of New Balance. Gyarados, Amoonguss, Tyranitar, Iron Hands, Fluttermane, and King Gambit. Both the Iron Hands and the King Gambit have Swords Dance, so I can't afford to play passively. Game 1, I lead Iron Hands Golden Go, and trick my opponent's Iron Hands a Choice Scarf, just as it tries to set up a Swords Dance. With his Iron Hands stuck Swords Dancing, he switches it out into Gyarados, but I call this, and hit the Gyarados with a Wild Charge, taking it out for absolutely free. At that point, I have a lot more resources to play with than my opponent, and I just win the game from there. Game 2 is a lot closer, with my opponent paralyzing almost my entire team with his Gyarados. But, because their Iron Hands wasn't Taro Grass, and wasn't holding a pair of safety goggles, I was able to use Amoonguss to protect my damage dealers and clean up the match. 4-2 now. 3 more to go. Round 7 was another New Balance team, this time with an extremely bulky Screamtail. I lose game 1 and win game 2 thanks to smart positioning of my Amoonguss, and win game 3 by locking my opponent's Screamtail out of doing damage with my Wide Guard Pelipper. 5-2. 2 more now. Round 8 was a matchup I was afraid of. Screamtail, Fluttermane, Annihilate, Golden Go, Talonflame, and Mousehold. I have a plan for the matchup, but it only really works if my opponent follows the exact flowchart I expect them to. I lead Azumarill and Fluttermane, and they lead Mousehold and Goldengo. Exactly what I needed. I managed to get up Trick Room as my opponent nasty plots and protects. From there, I sweep through their entire team before Trick Room ends. I assume my opponent won't let me get away with the same trick twice, so I plan for a non-Trick Room game in game 2. But they make the exact same lead, and I lose. But then I figure, if they were confident enough in that lead to go for it right after it lost them game 1, they'll probably do it a third time. So I decided to go for my Trick Room plan again, and it works like a charm. One of the scariest matchups out of the way. 6-2. 1 more. My notes weren't great for round 9, but I remember my opponent brought Fissure Dondozo, Tinglu, Chi-Yu, and Focus Sash Fluttermane, both games. Game 1, I barely managed to squeak it out, even though my opponent hit both fissures they went for. And in game 2, I managed it again. I remember my hands were literally shaking as I went to click the Moonblast that knocked out their Dondozo. I won. 7-2. I made it into day 2, but that's just the beginning. I would need to win all of my matches if I wanted the top 8 NAIC, and I wanted it. I went to bed early, woke up, ready to prove myself for the next day. I see my round 10 appearing and my heart immediately sinks. Ben Grismer, perhaps one of the most innovative team builders of all time. Ben is always playing something weird and doing well with it, and this time was no exception. Indeedee Armarouge, Hawlucha, Tyranitar, Lycanroc, and Great Tusk. I lead Azumarill Pelipper into his Great Tusk and Armarouge. I know I can beat the rest of the team if I just get rid of the Armarouge, so I get aggressive, going for Liquidation and Hurricane. If he Terra Grasses, the Hurricane will knock it out. If he doesn't, the Liquidation will get him. But Ben risks the whole game on a coin flip. He Terra Grasses his Armarouge and switches his Great Tusk out for Tyranitar, setting up the sand. Now my Hurricane only has a 50% chance to hit, but it does, knocking out the Armarouge in one hit. Suddenly, I'm up 4 Pokemon to Ben's 2, and Ben forfeits. Game 2 is similarly aggressive. Again, his Terra Grass Armarouge gets taken out pretty early, but this time I don't get the double knockout. In the end, I was able to win because I saved my Terra Grass from my Iron Hands and used it to win a 1v1 in the endgame against his Great Tusk that was locked into Headlong Rush. 8-2. Maybe I can do this. My next opponent had a Pokemon I really didn't want to see. Terra Poison, Safety Goggles, Rotom Wash. A bulky Will-O-Wisp Pokemon that can do super effective damage to Azumarill and Pelipper, and I can't interact with it with Amoonguss' Rage Powder, is a nightmare to beat. I either trick away the Safety Goggles with Golden Go, or attack it extremely aggressively to have a chance to win. But there's the rest of my opponent's team. Tinglu, Shinpao, Fluttermane, Dragonite, and Earthworm. Both games, I managed to deal with the Rotom Wash, but by the time I do so, I've used up so many of my resources that the rest of my opponent's Pokemon can clean up the match. 8-3. No more real chance at top 8, but I could still qualify for Worlds, and maybe win some money. My next opponent is playing Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Chi-Yu, Fluttermane, Iron Bundle, and Glamora, and I know exactly what to do. Both games I get up Trick Room, use Amoonguss to stop them from successfully assembling the Dondozo-Tatsugiri combo, and sweep their team with Azumarill and Pelipper. 9-3. 2 more to go. My next opponent is playing New Balance, but with Grimmsnarl over Tinglu. Game 1, my opponent just straight up outplays me. And in game 2, I get a little unlucky with a Pollen Puff critting my Terra Grass Iron Hands and a Hurricane missing their Amoonguss. 9-4. I can no longer qualify for Worlds, but I can at least make a little bit of money if I win the next one. I get paired into Colin. Colin is one of the 2 players that have been using Azumarill for a while now, so it was a perfect 6 Pokemon mirror. I was hoping my EV spreads would give me the jump on him, but after 2 close games, I lost. At 9-5, I end up in 42nd place out of 777 players, giving me 130 CP, but no cash, no other prizes, and no Worlds invite. I didn't reach my goal of top 16 to qualify for Worlds, but by day 2ing such a serious event, I think I managed to prove that I really am a good player, and I have more room to grow. I love this game, and I love this community, and while my season is over, I'm not done. I'll still be making content, and I'll be back next season starting in September. This is just the end of Chapter 1 of Scrawl VGC. I hope you all stick around for the rest. Thanks.